Welcome to Brave Inflections. My name is Claudelle. I'm the founder of Brave Inflections, and I have with me today Pam Kleinot. Pam, welcome. I'm so pleased that you could join me today in this conversation. Pam has an interesting history. She used to be a reporter with the Rand Daily Mail back right in the middle of when South Africa was going through its turbulent times. Had a very, very interesting and illustrious career as a reporter, went on, changed into careers into becoming a psychoanalytical psychotherapist and group analyst. Pam, I practiced that. Did I get that right?
Yes.
I'm very proud of myself. But today, Pam is working on film documentaries and specifically focusing on social issues. And I thought I'd bring Pam in to have a conversation around lots of things when it comes to us as human beings, understanding ourselves better and understanding our behaviors better, but very in particular, from a leadership perspective. I've had conversations with Pam, and I thought she has really, really great insights that will help leaders, not just in terms of leading themselves, but also have a greater understanding of the contexts and in which they lead and the people they lead. So Pam, I want to start with this question, because this is something that I have really, I suppose the right phrasing would be I'm a little vexed in this area because in self-reflection, I've started to wonder, thinking about self-awareness, whether complete self-awareness is even possible, and whether we're just kidding ourselves. And just watching myself, there was a time in my life where I thought I was very self-aware, and more recently I've started to doubt that significantly. So your thoughts around that?
Okay, sure, we can be self-aware. But the word you're using is complete self-awareness, and I don't think we ever quite have that. I think people can be aware of different aspects of themselves. Our traits, our behaviors, feelings, but we all have hot spots and we have blind spots. So hot spots basically is about memories of a peak emotional distress experience during which it was traumatic. And blind spots are we can be ignorant or biased about certain parts of ourselves. And one can become more self-aware through therapy, relationships, understanding of one's impact on others, knowing our areas of vulnerability, as we all have them, no matter how hard we try to mask them.
But it does sound to me, Pam, when I'm listening to you, that it almost, before we can talk about real self-awareness, that you would need to start with awareness of the fact that you are not totally self-aware.
I think that's right, because basically you have a conscious and an unconscious mind. And of course you can consciously think this, but we're often driven by unconscious feelings, thoughts, desires, fantasies. We all have them.
And that's not always easy for us to recognize, though, or admit to ourselves.
No, and that's the aim of therapy, is to make the unconscious conscious.
Mm-hmm. I suppose it becomes more of an issue when those underlying factors are negative factors. How can one recognize that you are being driven by negative emotions, and how can you navigate to a better state?
Okay, let me first say that people build up defenses to protect themselves, which again, they may not be aware of that they're doing that. And they have a useful function because they can be protective, but they can also get in the way of growth and development. So one of the ways of recognizing maybe more hidden negative things is recognizing patterns of behavior. And we sometimes have ways of warding off difficult feelings through alcohol, drugs, working too much, sex, shopping a lot. There are various ways we can do it. And any addiction or any of those kind of things temporarily wards off feelings of pain and discomfort.
That's an important one. So it's what I'm hearing you saying is that we have this ability to go into self-protection mode.
Yes. And survival mode.
And survival mode.
Survive difficult experiences.
Yeah.
And it protects you in that moment, but it can be negative later when it's used inappropriately.
Mm.
But if you're running away from a lion, you need to be survive. You need the fight response. You need to be able to protect yourself.
Yes.
If the lion's going to eat you.
So it's your ability to then distinguish between when that need to protect is as positive, because at that point in time you need to employ it, but then also realize that you may overextend that protection, and when you overextend the protection, it is no longer working in your favor.
Yes, I think it's when defenses overstay their welcome.
So that overextension can then at the end of the day start to harm you.
Yes, and it can work negatively, and you can get stuck there.
Yeah,
and you can feel safe, but it's not enhancing your life.
And I'm wondering whether there may be also two different aspects to it. On the one hand, not enhancing your life, or you stunting your own growth.
Yes.
But it may also have a negative impact on the people around you.
Absolutely.
So sorry, Pam, go ahead.
No, carry on.
I was just thinking that what it brings to mind then is that leaders should really practice self-care. But I find, and I see this so much in the coaching practice, that by the time people come to me, you can see quite evidently so that they don't practice self-care. If we talk about the consequences of lack of self-care.
Okay. I think generally we all need to practice self-care, but leaders particularly, they carry a huge responsibility as they have to make difficult decisions, whether it's leading the country or leading people in the workplace or leading whatever it is. There's an enormous stress and pressure on a leader in these roles. So self-care helps them think more clearly and to see things more realistically. And if stress is not properly managed over time, it can impact one really negatively in terms of their decision-making, perspectives, and can lead to burnout.
And I think often that we have this tendency of thinking of ourselves a little like we are immortal.
Immortal and invincible, and that we live in an island, but we don't. Yeah. We live as a group. That's why I loved being a group analyst, because it really, really provided an opportunity for like a hall of mirrors, where different aspects of yourself could be mirrored in other people, and you could resonate with other people.
Let's talk about, can we talk about that a little more? Because I think if we talk about group analysts, I'm not sure, when we talk about psychotherapists, most people understand what that means.
Okay, no, fair enough. Obviously, analytical psychotherapy is generally one-to-one therapy. A group is about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people. Mm-hmm. And it's a safe setting. There are two different types of, there are many different types of groups, but it can be a short-term group, where it's kind of focused like for 10 weeks or 30 weeks, or it can be called a slow open group. But the point is that you build up a culture of safety and a group of people who meet every week or twice a week, and they're able to talk about their issues and reflect on them, and they can see aspects of themselves mirrored in other people, or when other people are talking, it resonates with them, with their problems. So it's a very great way of gaining self-awareness, learning about yourself.
Ah, okay. So to come back to the individual leaders and the need for self-care, and I would just linking it with what we were talking about earlier on, and the things that may be sitting under the surface that we are not aware of, that self-care would probably then also include making time to find out where those potential areas may be and dealing with those.
Yes, and self-care is key to leadership, because you can only look after other people when you look after yourself.
Yeah.
Even same with a mother, because if they run dry and empty, they're not going to be able to give that much. So self-care really involves any action you take to mental, physical, or emotional well-being. So it can be like eating properly, making sure you have enough sleep, taking breaks, taking walks to clear your mind, or whatever exercise you choose to do. And those things really, really are important. And it's very important to make time for them. I always see it as a false economy to think I don't have the time.
What advice would you have for those who say, I don't have the time? How can they make the time?
They need to make the time, because in the end, it's that can keep them healthy. It's called, for want of a better word, like mental hygiene and emotional hygiene, is looking after yourself. Like to bath every day, to just take care of yourself. And you also are a role model.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, Pam, that if I can bring it into the realm of women for a second, I often find that women find it more difficult because they feel more of a burden of having to take care of others first.
I think that is certainly that they are providers. No, that they are the givers, and men are the providers. That's a very stereotype in society. With and women give, and sometimes at great cost to themselves personally. That's why you have a lot of eating disorders and where they're not feeding themselves. It's a symbolic way of feeding themselves, or not feeding themselves, but using food inappropriately. Just for one.
But in a leadership context, that is a very easy trap to fall into as well. Taking care of everybody else around you, not taking care of yourself.
Yes. Yes.
Pam, I really, really appreciate your insights. Thank you for being so generous and in sharing your thoughts. I think just to summarize, your ability to start off with understanding that you're probably not as self-aware as you are, as you think you are. You're probably not taking as much care of yourself as you think you are, or you should be thinking about doing more, spending a little more time, but taking care of yourself, but then also dealing with those issues in your life that may be hindering your self-growth, but also affecting the people around you negatively. And those would be, in my mind, very important leadership characteristics. So if you are in a leadership position, then these things that we were talking about should just be part and parcel of how you run your own life.
Absolutely. I think one of the key things one of the phrases they use in the workplace is the work-life balance. And I think it's really important to be able to work hard, play hard, have fun, look after yourself, and just it adds to the richness of your life and being more whole.
Yeah, yeah. Which is probably a little more difficult in times like these. The last 2 years have been extremely difficult for most people. Leaders having to lead themselves through a difficult period, but then also leading others through a tremendous amount of uncertainty and a lot of grieving as well. A lot of people have been sick, losing family members and so forth. And suddenly the team is no longer together in one office and they disperse all over the place in their different homes, and the issues that we've started seeing playing out in homes as well makes it even more important that leaders take a step back and take care of themselves. Because you said something important earlier on in terms of to be able to think clearly.
To think, and you've got to make decisions and you've got to think about it.
Yes.
And you've got to make sense of sometimes very difficult and complex situations.
Yeah.
So if you're a bit disturbed or you haven't slept properly and you're not eating properly and you're just grabbing this and that, it's not going to be that helpful to you.
Yeah.
Although we all do it.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't make it okay, but it's just to be aware that it's you're not going to function on all 4 cylinders.
Yeah. And you owe it to the people you lead.
And you owe it to yourself in the first place.
And you owe it to yourself. Absolutely. Absolutely. So you take care of yourself, not just for you, but for others as well.
That's why you can only look after, when you look after yourself, you can look after other people. And you also are a very good role model for that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's an important point.
Because sometimes in the workplace, you'll get somebody in charge who's working all hours of the day and night, not eating properly. The staff think that that's what's expected of them. And that's the example that's been.
Yeah.
And it's not setting a very healthy culture.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I think most of us don't even think about that, that we're setting the pace in the culture of the organization as leaders in terms of the signals that we send.
I think there's often people don't realize the impact they have on others.
Yeah, most of us don't. And that for me comes back to that starting awareness, the awareness of your own lack of self-awareness. So your impact on others for me is part of you being aware of self and how you show up and how your actions and your words impact on the others around you. Yeah. But if you don't reflect on that, then we just essentially live or lead almost without a good compass.
I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, I do hope that those listening to the conversation take heart, and one has to, just as committees and boards do an annual self-evaluation. As individual leaders, we should also be doing a self-evaluation. And I hope after this conversation, one of your questions that you're going to be asking yourself continuously is how aware am I of self? Am I taking good enough care of myself? And what is the example that I'm setting for the others around me? Very, very important questions. I encourage you to, this is the first conversation of 2. I encourage you to go and listen to the other video as well. Subscribe to the website whenever we add something new to the website, you'll be notified of that. Also on YouTube, there's on YouTube, so you can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. Once again, Pam, I really, really appreciate your insights and looking forward to our next conversation.